Hello, everybody. Kevin McNulty here. And first of all, I just want to thank the many thousands of people around the world who has joined us for Grow Yourself. Okay, so it might be a few short of 1,000. I'm just saying that I appreciate you being here for the new Grow Yourself podcast. Today, this evening, got an interesting topic. One that I must say that I have personally been speaking about for 25 or 30 years. I will also say, though, that probably at least 15 of those years, I've had a collaborator, a friend, a colleague, maybe one of the smartest people that I know, certainly one of the kindest people that I know, who we have had, I don't know if maybe hundreds of conversations about something relative to this topic. And so I'm going to introduce you to him in just a moment. But just to share with you a little bit about where I'm going with this, where my guest and I are going to go with this topic today, it has to do with leading yourself. And I would say to you that this is a topic we are all aware of. The vast majority are aware of this topic. And but it's one of those things that falls into the category of many times to be self-aware or to do those things that require you to lead yourself, if you will, and we'll define that more in just a moment. It falls into the category of simple but not easy. It's kind of like things like, let's say, losing weight, or quitting smoking, or stop cursing, or going to the gym, or any of these, waking up early, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. These sorts of things, oftentimes the solutions are simple. It's the challenge of, reshaping your mindset to create more urgency about these sorts of things. And I'm talking about the things that would require you to lead yourself, such as self-awareness. And again, we'll define that in a minute. But reframing, if you will, your mindset, getting the right mindset so that you're more inspired, motivated, have greater discipline to do that, and then actually carrying it out. As a matter of fact, and we'll talk about this, I've worked with a concept for many, many years, and I call it the See, Do, Get. And See, Do, Get is a personal development, professional development, self-awareness. Basically, it's the basics of human dynamics. And it goes like this, that everything that you do in life flows out of what you think, consciously or subconsciously. And then everything that you get in life, and I mean outcomes, results, whatever the case might be, flows out of what you do. So if you just apply the most basic logic to that, that suggests that everything that you get in life, all the results, the outcomes, short-term, long-term, doesn't matter, it flows out of what you think. So the idea in personal development, in leading yourself, in any of these sorts of things, comes down to, recognizing how you view things. And this, not just how you view things, but your thoughts, your beliefs, your perceptions, your attitude, your expectation, all of these things eventually impact and influence the way that you behave. And so sometimes, when we talk to leaders about how to be a better leader, how to be, let's say, more empathetic or communicate better, and this is just an example. Let's say that a leader, more or less was brought up through the ranks to believe that, employees are employees and they just should pretty much do what I think. I'm not here to be their best friend. I'm not here to, to ask for their permission or make them happy. They're here to do the job. I'm their leader and they should just do what I say. So that's a mindset that, it's a little bit of a crass mindset, but there's plenty of leaders out there, you probably know them, who behave like that, or who think like that, I should say. So the point is that if they embark in coaching, let's say with me or with my guest, You're trying to change their behaviors, how they behave towards their employees. But if they still, in their mind, if they just fundamentally believe that our employees are employees and they should just do what I say and I'm here to be their best friend or make them happy, then you see that change of behavior will be short lived. So then the goal becomes, how do we get this leader or person to shift the way that they think? And so again, we'll get into that. So anyways, all of these things, I just throw out this little preface, all of these things comes down to self-leadership. And my guest believes that essentially, and again, he'll tell you more about it, that you can't really truly lead others. And now, remember, when we talk today about leading, or this evening about leading, not talking about just in the workplace or as an executive or a director or anything. We're talking about if you're leading in church, if you're leading as a parent, if you're leading a group, a team, it doesn't matter. In any capacity, whatever, however you lead, the point is that my guest will bring out to you is that you truly can't lead others until you learn to lead yourself. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to introduce my guest. I'm going to just read a bio. I know him well beyond his bio, but in any event, I want you to hear these a little bit about John Bentley, my guest. So, like you, John Bentley has experienced the ups and downs of life. One moment you are on cloud nine, and other times you may become confused and not quite sure of where you turn to next. Through it all, John has come to understand that leading yourself is the key to staying motivated, overcoming challenges, solving problems that will occur in your life. John's aha moment came early in the Air Force when he received feedback that his leadership style under pressure was similar to someone opening the can after shaking it. And we're going to hear about that story. So this led him on a journey to discover why he behaved poorly in tough situations. The findings John uncovered were not easy to accept, but he had the desire to learn and the willingness to overcome the limiting beliefs that caused him to struggle. It caused him to be frustrated and caused him to limit his opportunities for success. His inner journey provided him with peace and the motivational answers to his current success. So after John retired from the Air Force, he founded Power to Transform, and since 2003, his sole focus is on helping people master the art of self-leadership, especially when faced with adversity. His goals, whether speaking, coaching, training, are always the same: equipping people to leverage their strengths and mitigate their limitations so that they can be more effective for themselves and to others. John authored the book 52 Ways to Motivate Yourself. I highly recommend it. And is featured in the book Speaking of Success. In this book, John shares his own 5 enablers of success, along with other business experts, such as Ken Blanchard. You may have heard of him, the 1-Minute Manager. Jack Canfield, he's one of the 2 authors of Chicken Soul for the Soup. And Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so, beyond a professional, I know John as a friend. We've known each other for at least 15 years, and truly is one of the great, the great guys and the great professionals in this world. So I would like to now welcome John to the screen. John, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I think the one thing that really stood out to me that I want to be known for is you said kind. And I really appreciate that because I want to show people kindness, especially in today's world.
And, and the truth is, that's exactly as I do know you, as a person that is kind and very giving. And so, I promised you, and we kind of promised each other, that this live stream is going to be pretty much. Let me get these comments open just in case people comment so I can see it as we go along here.
Yeah.
This live stream will be essentially like the dozens or hundreds of conversations that you and I have had over the 15 years. I mean, we talk perhaps even a couple of times a week or something, and oftentimes it's has to do with our work because we're in the same, basically the same field of work. We talk a lot about our spirituality, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's everything in between. So listen, John, again, thank you so much for being on here with us. And I'd like to sort of start off by just asking you if you will tell our audience just a little bit about you and sort of what brought you to where you're at today.
Well, Kevin, it goes back to fortunately the day that the most respected individual in a 1,200 person organization shook that Coke can and asked me to open it. And of course, I said no. And he wanted to know why. And I shared it. I popped the top. It's going to spew all over me and you. And of course, he got truthful and kind with me. And I really ask people to get this. I've learned that if I'm just truthful with you, I'm probably going to punish, blame. I'm going to be right. And I really don't care how you feel. Or if I'm just kind, I'm really going to like walk on eggshells. Again, it's about me. I don't want your feelings to be hurt and mine to be hurt. But he was truthful and kind. He said, John, you're like this Coke can that pops and spews on people when things don't go your way and you think you're right. So here I am, 31 years of age. I am struggling. I am frustrated. My opportunities for success, I think they just don't want me to do well. And I'm leaving the Air Force. So that day, I made that vow to understand, why do I behave that way? What is it about John that he thinks that is holding him back? And I've been on that journey now. It was April 9th, 1992. So what's that, 29 years? And I'm going to continue this journey because what I want to be when things are not calm, when they're chaotic, when they're frustrated, I want to be a thermostat in a thermometer world. Now, what the heck do I mean by that? Well, a thermostat regulates. It creates a safe environment. It creates a comfortable environment. And when I'm in people's space and I have the opportunity to influence them or be influenced by them, I can't do it if I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, or I want my way, or you got to do everything I say, or I just give in to other people. Because that thermometer can only react. And that's what I was good at doing at 31 years of age. Just reacting and blowing up or clamming up.
Wow. So this person, this professional who was very respected in your organization, literally walked up to you and shook a Coke can and said, open it?
He absolutely did. Handed it to me, said, open it.
And of course, obviously, you refused. Every one of us would know. But the metaphor there then is that this is the way that you behave, is what he was suggesting to you. Is you're like a Coke can, that when people, say things to you that you don't like, or you don't get your way, whatever the case might be, that you just spew your whatever all over everybody. Is that right? Is that?
Couldn't have said it better myself, Kevin. Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's fascinating. What a lesson to learn at that juncture in your life that, and you and I talk about this all the time, the power of feedback. And in our work as coaches, we often have to deliver feedback to people at, many different echelons, but including executives. And you and I know the value of feedback, as do many people. But what's interesting about that is when we give feedback, even though the person that we're delivering to the feedback to, we're the coach, we don't have any power in this situation.
Right.
We're just conveying what 6 or 10 or 12 people said in the organization about this leader. And even though they say, yeah, I want the hard feedback, sometimes you deliver it and they don't take it very well. So but the point is to get feedback like that, that can be life changing. It really can. Don't you agree?
Well, certainly, Kevin, because really, Russell White, he cared about me and my success.
Yeah.
And now other people may have given me feedback and I was blind to it, or I didn't have a level of respect like I did for him.
Yeah.
But at 31, that's the first time someone cared about me enough to share information that if I'm willing to accept it and then allow him or others to mentor me and act on it, that I can become who I'm destined to be.
Yes. Very nice.
And there were still bumps in the road. Now,
Sure.
I was supposed to get out of the Air Force and not retire that December. This was April. Luckily, I was able to stay in the Air Force and he did mentor me for another 2.5 years. And if it comes up in our conversation today, I'll share a couple of more things that he did that, again, got my attention in that moment, that literally shifted the way I thought about life.
Boom. And you just said the magic word. And I'm going to ask you in just a moment about how you personally define self leadership or leading yourself. But you just hit the magic word that when I was explaining, I think you probably heard when you were sitting in the virtual green room when I talked about see, do, get. And you and I have talked about this many times. Well, if you have see, do, get into circulation, just before the C, now I'm confused about what I'm reaching for. Just before the C, I have in this model the shift. And the idea there, that, and you mentioned the shift, that when we're talking about shifting the way that we think or the way that we see the world or whatever the case might be, sometimes comes down to a profound or a significant emotional event where something happens or somebody tells you something and suddenly your mind thinks differently about it, which is what causes you then to behave differently. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, Kevin, because what he helped me recognize is how my behavior impacted other people in a way that was not, I'll just say, healthy. And it was because in me there were some things that were not healthy.
Yeah.
That it was important I learned to face and work through the pain of that in order for that shift to then become a transformation.
Yes. Wow. I'm thinking about this. Well, no, I'm gonna keep going here. So, for our viewers and for anybody who could use this information that we're talking about here, step number one in leading yourself, if you will, is to understand the impact that you're having on others, if you will. And to do that, you go out and get feedback, right? You can get feedback from anybody around you and just ask them basic questions to start to see what other people see. And this is an important area, correct? That we
Oh,
have to not just think about how we see ourselves, but how others see us.
well, and I love how you said that, because my behavior not only impacts me, it
Yes.
impacts those around me. And I love the story you tell about asking your daughters for feedback. And I've done the same thing with my family. And it's like, ooh, oh my goodness, I had no idea that is the way my behavior came across to you. Eh,
Yes, that's beautifully said, and therein lies the key, is getting perspective about.
mm,
Again, you kind of know how you think about yourself sometimes, but we often, even though we might be around loved ones or coworkers or whatever, time and time again, it might be our very behavior that even prevents them or that stifles them from giving feedback. So, in other words, as you described yourself, that Russell gave you feedback about, I do it too. Sometimes if I get into a mood, I don't want to hear something. And so if you turn somebody off, if somebody gives you feedback and you push back and give them a bunch of crap, well, what's the chances they're going to come back later and give you more feedback? And this is the key. So, John, let me just ask you, how do you define self leadership or leading yourself? Give our audience a bit of an understanding of your perspective about
yeah,
this.
and I'll share with you, Kevin, that most of my coaching clients today are coming to me because in this situation we're in over the 18 months, they're finding out that they're overreacting to things because of the pressure put on them with the way we're working. The results are still required to get, and they're either blowing up or clamming up. So
Very
when I say
interesting.
blowing up, that means I usually dig in and I try to force my way on people because I know the answer and this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And if I clam up, I usually give in and either just do what people tell me or avoid it altogether. So the way I'm defining it is I work with people who want to think more clearly, behave more wisely, and model success during difficult times. And
Mm.
that really requires you to understand your thought process. So what was it when that happened? When Bob cut me off in the meeting,
Yeah.
and I interrupted him back and pointed my finger at him. What emotion or what story did I tell myself that came up from that thought? And for me, what I must be careful of. It's if I don't think you're respecting me, oh boy, I'm going to light into you if I don't catch myself. So,
Very interesting.
so it's in those situations where your emotions run high, and those become your driver of your behavior versus your own personal values. How do you learn to shift and transform to pause for that moment and say, okay, what's my number one value here that's going to ground me and allow me to be present, calm, and confident so I can help people and help myself move through this situation?
Very interesting. And so, what I'm kind of gathering from that, John, is that we and you use this term all the time about slip, trip, and fall, and
Mhm.
this sort of this notion that well might even suggest what Covey said about reactive people versus proactive people. That
Yeah.
and I want to get to your point about self leadership, but that reactive people, they simply react to something. So maybe the analogy that you gave, or that you're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off, and you just react to them. And then later, maybe even just a few minutes later, you kind of you know so first of all, your point is that when that happens, you might tell the story in your head about how rude that person was.
Yes.
We don't actually know. I mean, it's just a story we tell. But then for many of us, once that emotion calms down, then we go, why did I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not
Right.
rude and mean. Why did I behave that way? And so your point is that, to lead yourself is to get more in touch with those things, the stories we tell ourselves, the perceptions that we have that could be way off, and then become, as Covey would say, again, instead of reactive, proactive. So now you're able to be more thoughtful in your responses. Yes.
Absolutely. So if we go back to the thermostat analogy, that the person has cut me off, and all my dad is saying doesn't respect you, doesn't respect you, doesn't respect
Mm,
you. With that thermostat, it regulates so I don't react to
mm,
that story of doesn't respect me, doesn't respect me. And then I can
mm.
engage Mark in a way. Hey, Mark, appreciate you jumping in here. Do you mind if I finish my story? Because I think it will help you provide more valuable information than you've already provided to us in this situation. So I've still helped Mark feel good about himself, and I'm also living my own personal values of showing respect to Mark in that situation. And what I hope with other people around the table is they see, wow, look how John behaved in that moment where I would have probably just punched him in the throat. If I think like that, or I would have cut him off, or I'd have said, don't you cut me off, let me finish. But instead, I do it in a way that maintains psychological safety in that situation,
I love
so
that.
other people are willing to join in.
And those types of behaviors, when you're more deliberate about what you say, how you say it,
Yes.
and you just associated a very important point there, that and it's associated again. So sort of back to the analogy that if I may, and I go back to the very beginning of what I said, that I may truly believe in kindness, for instance,
Hmm.
or even politeness. So that's a value that I associate, that I want to be associated with. I want people to know that of me. And boy, if I'm a leader, wouldn't people want to follow somebody that is kind, that's empathetic, that is thoughtful? Whatever values you want to apply to that. But if you're incapable of really projecting that, which is kind of what you're saying, that if people are incapable of projecting that, then you actually become the person that they don't want to follow.
Amen.
So to be proactive is to then connect your behaviors with your true values and follow them.
Yes. Yes. And go back to those values when you have that moment where you want to react, and let those values center you. Because here's what my mentor Ann Minton shares with me from Birmingham, Alabama. She says that behavior is believable.
Mm.
So when people see my consistent behavior, and notice
Mhm.
I haven't defined it good, bad, or indifferent, but if I'm
Mm.
consistently blowing up or I'm consistently clamming up when things get tough, that's what people are going to remember of me
Mm.
all the time.
Mm.
But if I'm calm and confident consistently when the going gets tough and people can count on me and they know that I can count on them, then we can focus on the actions we need to take to make something happen versus
Mm.
letting everything happen to us.
Wow. So now we're going to get to the big question of how. But before we do that, let's see if she's still here. I haven't done this before. I'm gonna flash somebody up here that we both know, and you're gonna
Okay.
recognize this person. You see it there?
Hey, Audrey Blake, how are you? How's retirement? How are you, Mr. Perry? So good to see you. Hi, guys. This is very important info that people really need in today's climate. Yes, ma'am, it's Audrey.
Very nice to see you, Audrey, and maybe Perry as well. Maybe that was Perry. I'm not sure. He probably hijacked Audrey's Facebook page. So, John, and I might be getting ahead of you here,
It's all
but
good, brother. Let's just
but
roll.
so let's talk about the how then. How do people work towards, again, listen, I fall into this category. I need to pretend with anybody that I can be moody
Yes,
and I don't always behave in the way that I think that not only think I should, but know that I should.
that's right.
And, you know, I think I can chalk some of it up for emotions. Maybe I get caught off guard or, maybe it's too early in the morning. That's always a bad time to talk. Uh, but just for the average person, how do they move into this situation, into this ability to manage their thoughts and more, to be proactive with their behaviors? I guess is the point. What we're talking about here. What are your thoughts
Well,
about
if you
that?
don't mind, Kevin, I'll go back to what I first discovered about myself after the Coke
Please.
can incident was I was a very insecure person. My dad always wanted me to do my best, and he would say, "Now, are you sure you did your best?" And so the comments
Yeah.
he would make to me, even though this wasn't his intent, led me to believe that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough. Didn't matter what I did, I was going to always fail. So
Mm.
I was always trying to do more to have
Mm.
self worth, to have
Mm.
self value. But every time I'd make a
Mm.
mistake, I would condemn myself. Well,
Mm.
there's evidence again, John. You're not good enough. So that's one of the first things was me to recognize that that's just not true, John. Just not true. And from that, I have a saying that I use today that I allow myself 6 mistakes a day, and if I don't use them all, I roll them over. But now I got to go talk to my BW, my beautiful wife, to see if I got rollovers. So what I've learned is that when I slip and trip and fall, and I think Zig Ziglar said this,
Mm.
and I'll give him credit for it, is failure is not a person, it's an event.
Mm.
And the only way you
Mm.
fail is when you quit.
Yeah.
And I'm not a quitter, and I don't have quitting sense. So it was helping reshape some of those beliefs and realizing that that's not who I am.
Right.
So one of the first things that I started working on was my personal values. And I recommend it to anybody, no more than 3. And my personal values now are be approachable, be teachable, and be helpful.
Love it.
And now I've assigned behaviors to that using the acronym WIN, WIN. So I welcome diverse thinking so we can make the best decision with the information we have. And the
Yes.
I is inquire with curiosity because now you're getting other people's input. You seek to understand, you build trust, and you get their buy-in. And the
Yes.
N is I never stop serving others with my God-given talents.
Wow. Love that. Now, why 3 values?
For me, I've been able to recognize that those 3, there's a lot of those that fall under those umbrellas, but I
Yeah.
can remember those 3. I can remember that acronym. So I'll share a story with you.
Please.
Uh, Laura and I had a discussion about spending money, about an item. And she came back and said, "You're going to be mad at me. I didn't buy just one, but I got a second one." And it flew all over me, Kevin.
Mm.
I saw my finger come up. I saw her face start to drop down. And then right in my mind, now this is how clear it's gotten for me because I practice it. Was I being approachable? No. And soon as I said that, I mean, I'm getting a warm feeling now, maybe getting a little flushed. I just stopped and I started inquiring with curiosity. I said, "Baby doll, what led you to buy the second one?" I'm not going to fault you for it. I just had a moment. I apologize for that. That's not who I want to be.
Love it.
What led you to buy the second one? And she said, well, do you remember when we talked about that we would get it for one of our children, that it would be helpful for them? And I went, oh, yeah, we did, didn't we, sweetheart?
Yeah.
And so because I inquired with curiosity, I became teachable. And I said, okay, what can I do to help you from this point with where we are?
Mm.
And she said, well, there's sometimes that I act on fear. And this item that she bought was to help her overcome the fear and to help with one of our children. And I said, well, what can I do then? And how can I be more available, be a more resource to you, so that when those moments occur, that you feel safe to talk with me about it and I can support you, whether you need to buy something or do something.
Yeah.
She said, that will work, and I'll let you know when those moments occur.
Yeah. It's very interesting, John, and you just very, very profoundly described, self-leadership. That in so many different ways, that, and we can assign all kinds of ideas to self-leadership, but one of them is taking responsibility,
Yeah.
right? One of them is humility. I believe in this idea of when it comes to, let's say, taking responsibility and being accountable. Now, remember, the fact that I say it here doesn't mean that I always do it. It's
That's
always
right.
seems like a work in progress. I think it's very important that people understand this concept, that it's, again, it goes back to the idea of simple but not easy.
Right.
You see. So, because, like, for instance, why might I not accept something that I've done I said something wrong to a spouse, a friend, whoever it might be, a passerby, or why might I might not accept it because of my own ego? And and you
Yes.
and I both know, we've talked a lot about the ego, that our ego is there to protect us. And it's, and we all have an ego. It's all important to have an ego. But when your ego leads the way, when it speaks for you, i.e., you decide to argue with Laura because your ego is saying, hey, she's trying to tell you you're wrong, that's not self leadership. But rather, what I like about what you said is this idea of not just humility, but again, taking responsibility and just saying, I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
and not making a bunch of excuses and rationale behind it. It's not hard to do. It's not hard to make up stories as to why you did it, but rather than just to tell the person, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and I don't have a good excuse for, I don't even want to make up reasons why I did it. It was just plain wrong.
That's right.
You
Own it,
see,
Kevin, is what I'm hearing you say.
own it.
And
That's exactly
and
right.
and I would also say I didn't beat myself up afterwards.
Again,
And
self leadership.
that has been a huge key for me these last 10 years is I don't condemn me anymore. Now, do I sit and reflect and sometimes feel disappointed in myself or frustrated with myself? Those are normal emotions, but I don't let them own me. That I experience that emotion. I am not that emotion.
Right. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I experience it. I don't. It's not me. It's not who I am. It's something I've experienced,
That's
and
right.
that separates you from the emotion. I'll never forget. A therapist told me many, many years ago when I got out of the Air Force. I was seeing this very interesting therapist, and she was no nonsense. She would tell me just like it is, including dropping f-bombs on me during therapy. And we talked about these different emotions that we have, well, and even different behaviors or different whatever personas. And she said something that I'll never forget. She said, Kevin, you, we often identify one thing, like maybe something we don't like about ourselves, and we take that one thing and we say that's our identity.
Yes.
She said, what I want you to know is that that one thing is only part, it may be even a small piece of the full you. And so leave it in its place, and work on it. But if you start to say that's who I am, I'm
Yeah.
just a jackass, then then again, this becomes a story that you start telling yourself. So okay, so then so just back to the values, because I think it's very important, very interesting what you're saying, that some who might be listening, they could take something away from this. I certainly am, and that is that you know let me just say, and then I'm going to ask you about the values. The other thing that you and I both know, because we've talked about this, that, having values, I mean, no, identifying certain values, say three of them, is very important because it's like identifying goals.
Yeah.
And that, and there's the old adage, too many goals is like no goals at all. So
Yes.
if I sat down with anybody, you, me, it doesn't matter who, and start, let's talk about what you value in life. I mean, we're going to come up with 100, 1,000, right? But you can't, to your point, you can't carry these around, right? So what you're saying is go through this process of values clarification and try to figure out what are the top three that you want to operate your life by. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Kevin. And it's important to assign behavior statements to them. You
Very
see,
nice.
when the behavior is described to us, we can see that and know how to do it. That may take more energy for some of us depending on the behavior. So for like being approachable, it's welcoming different thoughts and ideas in order to make the best decision with the information that's provided.
I see.
That drives being approachable to me. So,
Yes.
so I became, and notice how when I became approachable to Laura, though, I went down to inquire with curiosity, which means now being teachable is in play here, which then allowed me to find out how I could serve her in that moment with
Very
being
interesting. So,
helpful.
yeah, so you're not only assigning a behavior to the value, but you're also clarifying the value itself. In other words, this is what being approachable looks like. And so
Yes.
once you have that and can carry it in your head, then you can actually know when you're violating it or when you're actually carrying through with it, right?
Absolutely, Kevin. So
Yeah.
the one thing I do every evening is I kind of replay in my mind what took place that day. And I walk through, was I approachable, teachable, and helpful today? If so, where were those? Okay, when did I answer those no? And then what triggered that? What is it that's still inside me that's a hurt that I need to heal? Because that's one thing I'll say to those listening and watching tonight is until you heal your hurts, you're always going to live in some pain. And so what I'm thankful for is I don't beat myself up for that anymore. Okay, John, let's set this across from you. And I'll just share this with the audience. And some folks may go, "Ooh, I'm not sure about that." But I literally drew a picture, and I'm not an artist, of a 7-year-old John Bentley.
Oh,
And I
wow.
taped it to a chair across from me. And I literally loved on that 7-year-old little boy.
Oh, wow.
I experienced the pain, but I was the one talking to John Jr. or Eddie and letting him know
Wow.
that he's okay, that what he went through
Wow.
was normal, and now it's time to let go of that pain. So I like to share with folks
Wow.
that if I and I highly respect you, Kevin. So I could become triggered if we get into a little bit of a difference of opinion and go, ooh, because I respect Kevin so much that I'm going to let that 7-year-old little boy rise up and I'm going to become helpless. But I
Wow.
recognize that when I do that, Kevin, whether it's with you or anyone else that's in my presence, that I'm not approachable, I'm not teachable, I'm not helpful in those moments.
Yes. So, and I don't want to complicate things. So you're getting a little bit into transactional analysis.
Yes, yes,
And with transactional analysis, and we don't have to go too deep into it, but with transactional analysis, there are basically three ego states, right? Three ego states.
yeah,
One of the states is a childlike state. And so, to your point, that if your tendency is to go into this childlike state when you become emotional or when certain things trigger that, it can be the submissive child, right? Who just kind of,
yeah.
crumbles, or to your point, becomes a rebellious child. And that's therein lies part of the problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. And I love the way you're describing that because really what happens, I want you to think okay about me.
Yes.
So I will become a people pleaser and just do what Kevin says because I want Kevin to like me because that's where I'm getting
Right.
my self-worth from that external validation.
Whew.
And that's one of the things that really helped me recognize that my identity was rooted in possessions, things I owned. It was rooted in positions, the jobs, the titles, things behind my name, and it was rooted in, oh, do people like me? Now you can imagine how stressed out and tired I was trying to keep up with all that.
Man, that is just some powerful stuff there. So, okay, so part of course, what we're talking about when we deal with these sorts of situations, and we're not therapists, we're coaches who've studied a lot of these sorts of things. But one of the things that I would like for us or for you to convey to the
Yeah.
audience is that, one way to learn more about, the 7-year-old, whoever you are, is to go to a therapist, right? And they can help you work through that. But on a more practical level, without having to go through a therapist, what you're suggesting is to, at the most basic level, and you didn't suggest it, but I know that you would suggest it, is to first start paying attention to how you think and behave, correct?
Yes, Kevin. And it's that simple, but you also added something else to it during your introduction. What was that second piece?
Simple but not easy.
Yes, it's going to take energy. It's
Yeah.
going to take a willingness to say, now, here I am as a 60-year-old adult now.
Yeah.
Does that really make sense?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, John. It doesn't make sense. All right, so become a noticer. Don't react when the temperature
Noticer.
rises or gets cold, but allow that thermostat, those values to kick in order to regulate you so you can be there for other people.
Wow. Very interesting. I had a client one time, so several years ago, and she was a mid-level executive, and amongst the first sessions that I had with her, I asked her to, and we met every 2 weeks, and I said, okay, so your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to, for the next 2 weeks, is to pay attention to how you think and the stories that you tell yourself, and write them down, put bullets. She wasn't that excitable of a person, but at the next session that we had, she darn near came running to the room and
Wow.
sat down and slammed her book on the table and said, Kevin, I'm going to be really honest with you. It surprised me too. I didn't know her that well, but surprised me just from her demeanor that she didn't seem this way. She said, I had no idea how judgmental I
How
was.
about that? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and I was like, what? And she said, well, the assignment was this, that, and the other. And I started to just pay attention to how I think.
Yes.
And I just started noticing that, and it wasn't always crude judgments, but just always making judgments about other people. Again, it didn't have to be something rude and lewd and crude, but she said, I just spent way too much time making judgments about people that I didn't even know,
Yeah.
you know? And so this is the power of paying attention, of, as you say, becoming a noticer.
Yeah, Kevin, I love that the advice you gave her, and I'm reading a book right now called The Leader's Journey, and it's really to help pastors who are struggling stories. And one of the models they use in there talks about that self-reflection, just like you had her do. And I'll share here the one thing that I took away from that personal transformation will only occur through grace and mercy.
Wow.
Now, another way to put that, and I'll speak for me because I wasn't always kind to me, is learn to be kind to yourself. So when I say I allow myself 6 mistakes a day, it always gets a laugh when I say I roll them over. But that's become very true for me, because now I can say, oh, that's one of those mistakes today. Now, what did I learn from it? So thank you for reminding me of that, Kevin, with that,
Wow.
what you asked her to do.
Man, I love that, and I think that's a big takeaway for certainly me and many other people. This idea of allowing yourself a certain number of mistakes, because I'm sure every last one of us, those who are watching, you and I, we would all agree wholeheartedly, 100%, that we all make mistakes,
Yes.
right? Therefore, if you take this advice that you're providing and give yourself some cushion, some
Yeah.
margin for error, you don't beat yourself up over it, or you don't think that, okay, so it's only 8 o'clock in the morning and I already screwed up. That's just one. You got 5 more. I mean, it's a weird way to think about it, but in a sense, it just you give yourself some grace, some
Yeah.
margin to be human.
Absolutely, Kevin, because I think what I would do is I would blow up at someone,
Yeah.
or I would give in and please someone, and then I would treat it like I murdered somebody. I would blow it up to a 10 instead of a 1, and not be okay with it. And then I would carry that around with me for a week or two. And I would go into a shell, and people would say, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." So I didn't know how to describe it. I didn't know how to talk it out because I didn't know what belief was causing that. And that's why it was important to understand where it came from, because I can blow up as well. And somebody asked me one day, "Where did you learn to behave like that?"
Oh, Lord, ouch.
"What do you mean, where did I learn to behave like that?" And then I go back, and my mom was always a calming presence in my dad's life. So ninth grade, I got a glowing report card, 3 Ds and 4 Fs. I'm the oldest of 5. Mom's got them on the dinner table. It's Thursday. Dad's gone Monday to Friday, a truck driver. So I got 1 day of reprieve. 1 day of reprieve. Dad comes home early. What's the first thing he picks up? Report cards. Who's on top? And the next thing you hear, "Shirley, get that boy in here." And then the next thing you hear is the belt coming from the loops. So I hear Mom talking with him, trying to come him down. I'm crawling down the hallway, and I peek my head in, and Mom's going, "Now, Johnny." I said, "Yeah, calm down. Calm down." She always had a way to calm him down. She'd touch him on the wrist. "Now, Johnny, we got to find out something positive about this report card." "Well, Shirley, you tell me, beep, 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 beep. What's positive about 3 Ds and 4 Fs? And Mom looked up at him, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Well, it's pretty obvious. The boy didn't cheat." Now,
I did not see that coming.
Now, Dad calmed down, and so I used that to find something, and hopefully it's your personal values that can help you get back to the here and now, versus allowing some negative past event to come in and control you. So with me and Laura, it just happened. My subconscious spoke to me. "You're not being approachable." Oh, not am I? Now I'm back to the here and now. I'm not I'm going to straighten you out.
Yeah. Woo, that's powerful stuff, man. So let me ask before, because I want to ask you about the book that you have coming out. But and I also might say that I know Laura a bit, and I do find it a little bit shocking, and I'm not certain that you're telling the absolute truth there, that you talk to her like that, because I'm pretty sure she would pop a cap up in your head.
Or I'd be eating cereal for 3 or 4 days.
Or be eating cereal for 3 years. Yeah. So, anyways, but if you say that you talk like that to her, okay, fine. I mean, But listen, okay. So, I had another question I was going to ask before I went down that rabbit hole about self-leadership. Well, if I think about it, I'll come back. But I don't want to lose the opportunity to ask you about your book that's coming out. Called The Gift. Well, it's not called The Gift, but give the full title.
Yeah, it's "You Are a Gift."
You are a gift.
And,
yes.
And gift is capitalized, and it is an acronym for God's image, fulfill talent. So you are a gift made in God's image to fulfill your talent and service to others.
Yeah. Keep talking. I'm going to put this beautiful, really beautiful book cover up on the screen. So just tell the audience a little bit about this, John. What a beautiful book cover.
Yeah, my oldest daughter, Natalie, passed away December the 11th, 2010, and it was from complications caused by prescription drug addiction. And God dealt with me through that moment, and through her death actually awakened me to show me that my identity was still in the world. So I had accepted Jesus as my Savior, but I was still living in the world, and I had not accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. Now, I'll back up just a little bit with that, Kevin, and share with you that I was physically present for Natalie, but I was not emotionally present. And for our listening audience, if you're not physically and emotionally present, then it's going to be hard for you to be helpful, and except in a way that will make sense to you. So I'll caveat it with this. With Natalie, I was there providing her financial support, which made me feel good about me, but I did not want to deal with the emotional side of what was going on. So God showed me that, and of course awakened me, that used her death to awaken me that my identity was in the world and not in Jesus. And so through the book now, we talk about how you can be a gift, the rewards of the gift, how to defend your gift, and it'll be coming out in October for pre-sale. It'll be coming out in October for pre-sale.
Wow, what a story, John. And this really kind of takes me back to the first thing that we talked about, the see, do, get, and the shift, and that these sorts of things. I mean, that's a situation that many of us can't really get our minds around if we have kids. What it's like to lose a kid. But my point is that, and especially we're talking about self-leadership here, to let that shift cause something so positive. I mean, and I don't even know if I could blame a person for it, but you could pretty easily turn angry.
Yeah.
Towards yourself, towards other people, turn to drinking, turn to drugs, turn to these other sorts of things. But you shifted in a completely different way that brought you around to write a book and build a foundation that will help other people. I mean, that's again, you begin to earn the right, if you want to put it that way, and these are your words, to lead others through this concept.
Yeah.
Through the book and through your words and through your foundation, right?
Yeah, Kevin, and I love how you're reminding me of some of the wonderful things that through tragedy, that if we will lean into God for strength and allow Him to love on us the way He does, that what happened He's going to use for good. So Alex, which was Natalie's son, was 5 at the time. He's now 15. Wow. His aunt, who's now his mom, was able to adopt him, which was Natalie's sister, Krista. She was told she'd probably never have children. God blessed her and Kendall, her husband, with twin boys.
Wow.
They're so healthy. And then just the fact of recognizing mothers that are addicted to prescription drugs, there's very little research out there on it. And the purpose with the You Are a Gift Foundation is going to be to do some of that research, but also just help women become healthy and whole, restored and redeemed, so that they can take the rightful place back in their family and be that servant leader for others to say, well, if she can do it, I can do it. How did she do it? I want to know more. And just to be there to help people recognize, like Natalie did. When I looked at her Facebook post, there were 60 people that talked about her gift. And it was just to be there with people when they were hurting, even in her darkest hour, and loved on them and let them know that they were somebody that was valuable and worthy. And that's what we want the purpose of the foundation to be, with helping mothers overcome those addictions.
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm going to ask you in just a moment about where people can find find you and find your book and all these other sorts of things. Excuse me. But I want to ask you this, that it just prompted the question, how do people lean into God? How does that happen? What do you do?
Well, for me, it was to say, okay, for the first time, John, let's read His Word and let God share with you what it means. And Kevin, one of the big things that I finally accepted, because if I can figure it out in my mind, I'm okay whether it's right or not.
Right. Okay.
And I said, okay, God, I'm not even going to ask to understand this, Lord.
Oh.
You tell us that we can't understand what you understand. Yeah. But I do want you, Lord, to hold me where I am till I learn the lessons that you want me to get, so that you can help me become more Christ-like. Because what I've learned in those situations where I don't even want to use the word tempted, but situations come up, adversity, etc.
Yeah.
As God is using that to grow me more Christ-like. And the lesson He wants for me to get. But the devil also knows my entire life and all those things where he can tempt me. And he is working just as hard to tempt me as God is to grow me into Christ. So while he's pulling to hold me back, God's pulling me to Him.
Yes.
And just looking at for one, is God test my heart and let me know what's not Christ-like about you. Now that's a paraphrase of a verse.
Sure.
God, I want to put my word in my heart so I do not sin against you.
Mm-hmm.
And taking two or three of those verses that can become a foundation for you to fall back on again, similar to your values. So here's what I do to go further with my values. I ask myself three questions every night, and the answer is going to be no occasionally, maybe more than occasionally. It's, how did my behavior today glorify God? How did my behavior today love others the way God loves me, even though they may not be loving me? And how did my behavior today, when the opportunity presented itself, get to share the good news of the gospel to those who are lost? And again, I write those down. And when it's a no, I go, thank you, God. You're showing something else. It's unchristlike about me that you want to change.
Yes.
And that's where the faith comes in.
Yes.
That I think eternally now, not earthly.
Yes, very interesting. And I might add for those, when we talk about self-leadership, because, we talk about self-leadership really from a personal development standpoint, professional development standpoint, and, if you will, and all these other sorts of things. But it's not, but, just because you're a Christian and you rely on God, if you will, or look to God to direct you, does not suggest that you don't have to also operate with some self-leadership. I mean, because we are given free will, and so turning yourself over, I guess you could say, to Christ or to God does not mean you don't act in a way that suggests that you're leading yourself in the same concept that we're talking about here. Is that right?
Absolutely, Kevin, because we both know that self-control is one of the fruit of the Spirit.
Good point.
Right. And so me choosing to have self-control is being obedient to what the Holy Spirit is directing me to do. And that's another thing I'm really studying hard this year. Okay, you gave us the Holy Spirit to comfort me, to guide me, to direct me, to convict me. And I'm learning to rely on that Holy Spirit because he lives inside of me. And so now when I get in those moments, I stop. All right, Holy Spirit, what am I supposed to do in this situation? And I'll tell you something funny. I go every morning to Cowboys to get my coffee. Got Red Diamond coffee. Right next to Red Diamond coffee is the Little Debbie oatmeal cakes, my favorite.
Just saying.
And as I go to reach them, it's times I hear the Holy Spirit, that's got 6 teaspoons of sugar in it. Is that going to help you? No.
I have never heard the Holy Spirit say that to me. Never. It's amazing. I don't know why it's talking to you and not me, but whatever.
That's what I hear. I hear that prompting because I'd eat 2 or 3 of them if I could.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
In fact, they say we're going to have to become hunters and gatherers again. I don't even know where Little Debbie lives.
Listen, John, I'm going to ask the audience real quick, and that if they have any questions at all for you, relative to self-leadership or leading yourself. And in the meantime, we're not going to just sit here and wait, but I want to ask you if you will share with the viewers, your website, where they can find the gift, You Are a Gift, and what other information that, for them to be able to get in contact with you about.
Yes, sir. And if you want to know more about mastering self-leadership, I've created a free 5-part video course. Each video is about 5-6 minutes long, and each video has a workbook with it. Just simply go to www.masterselfleadership.com. You'll be able to sign up for that, be able to watch the videos and do the worksheets. And the very first one is define and live your personal core values. So that'll give you a jump start on how that process works.
Yeah.
And then we just launched a brand new website. It's johnbentleyspeaks.com.
Very nice.
And if you click on books and audio on the menu, the very first thing you'll see when that page opens is You Are a Gift for pre-order there.
Very nice. That's fantastic. Okay, well, listen, wow. I guess I really shouldn't say wow. I wasn't surprised, such great words of wisdom, came from your lips. But I am so grateful, John, that you spent time with us, and just really, really appreciate you.
Well, Kevin, thank you. And what I love about that is we always seem to bring the best out of each other, and we certainly don't mind sharing where we've slipped, tripped, and fallen, and how that's helped us to propel us to where we are today.
Man, that's a beautiful thing. Well, listen, so we'll be talking soon, and I'm going to wrap this up, and look forward to talking to you again, and love to have you as a guest as well again.
All right, Kevin, thanks so much. Appreciate
John,
being on with everyone.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. So listen, everybody, just real quick, I say this every time, but I don't get any responses from the thousands of people that are watching here tonight. I just don't get it. But again, if there's a particular topic that you're interested to hear more about, I mean, you see how we roll here. It's just a conversation, and we'd love to attend to those topics, relative to personal development, professional development, even spiritual development. Would love to do that. And aside from that, I should also say I'm conscientious of the fact that so this is episode 4, and they've all been men. It doesn't bother me, so to speak, but I do want you to know, if people are asking themselves, well, where are the women? They're coming. I think women are just much more organized than men, and so they, the women that I've been in contact with to be on the show have just. So in fact, our next one's going to be just really terrific. I promise you're not going to want to miss it. But in any event, so yeah, we have people from all around the world, from different walks of life, that are going to be talking on this podcast, Grow Yourself. And so I hope you will share with others and invite others, and we're going to keep this rolling. I see somebody here made a comment. Let me just see before I take us out of here. So this is Perry. Thank you so much, Perry. Appreciate that. Yes, it's been great to have you as well. It's been a long time. So in any event, everybody, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless, and we are out of this situation. Bye.